This Sunday's Observer Food Monthly has a large piece by Sarah Brown, wife of Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister, all about food at 10 Downing Street, about the vegetable patch they have in the gardens, about the fair trade policy on sourcing things like coffee and sustainability in fish and seafood. It's very much a piece about the politics of food, the personal involved in the politics of food, and the difference that politicians can make. And so this week's conversation is about that issue. How much difference can politicians make to the way we eat? Let's imagine May the 7th, there's been a general election, and hooray for us, we've all been elected the government. You're all cabinet ministers, and you're all absolutely aware of nutritional issues in this country, rampaging obesity, diabetes, heart disease. It's the big headline issue. What are we going to do? What can we do if we are government?
I think you've got to start with kids, because it's a fact that as people get older, it's much harder to change the way they think.
Yeah.
With children, it's really quite easy. So I think you've got to start at school, and also, as well as sort of changing the foodstuffs at school and stuff like that, I think it needs to be about the education, so you need to start with food school early.
So actually teach about
and get kids interested. I mean, obviously they're not all going to be interested, but if you can get some kids really interested in, and actually understanding the value of what they're eating.
Obviously, I'd have to appoint Jamie Oliver as special advisor straight away. I think maybe, yeah. And I think it's all about obviously home economics, and possibly it might be an idea to put a tax on pizzas and Coke. Yeah.
All right, so now we're looking at revenue raising means, which would also, you think, improve the nation's health.
I think so, yeah.
So we
I know it's a bit nanny state.
A fat tax?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Does that mean there's going to be a tax on roast pork belly? Because I do love pork belly. Who is it who really pushes the debate forward? So you mentioned Jamie Oliver. Do you think what Jamie Oliver did with school meals and then later with his Ministry of Food in Rotherham actually made a difference to the way people think about food?
I mean, I've got an incredibly soft spot for him. I think like most people, you watch the first couple of series, liked him, then you grew to resent him as he cashed in on Sainsbury's. And then if you actually watch those programmes, it actually seems like he really cared. And even if he only affected 100, 200 people, it's probably going to be more than Sarah Brown tweeting about her raised vegetable patch.
Yeah.
He actually put an effort in, went there and tried to change people's lives.
He really believes in it. That's the difference. He works in food. He is a chef. We can get behind that. We can relate to that. But the Prime Minister, I can't see it with his spade.
We are talking about a guy who is as compromised as most politicians. He's got to get sponsorship on side. He's got to fill his restaurants. He's got to make money. If a political party gets in power, post World War II, Labour managed to put together the National Health Service. To say that they can't make a bit of a change to people's eating habits is rubbish. They came in with an effective, massive mandate for the past 13 years to plead that they can't do it. If a government with a full mandate wants to do something, it can.
We have the most sophisticated supermarket sector in the world, and it dominates food retailing to an enormous degree. I think it's something like 78% of all our food retail is through one of the big four. Are they too powerful, or are they actually the motors of change?
I read recently that 32 million people shop in supermarkets every week. So obviously they have a big influence on how people shop. And I think like supermarkets like Co-op and places like that, they're trying to move towards being more ethically sound and treating their producers better, which is definitely a step in the right direction. But I don't think it's enough. There's so many towns in Britain now which have lost their butchers, they've lost their greengrocers, they've lost their cheese shops or whatever. So that's why the supermarkets have been able to dominate so much, because we can't go anywhere else. We can't find anywhere else.
And doesn't it tie back into the Sarah Brown point? Sarah Brown is saying, well, I've got a vegetable patch, this is pretty amazing, I believe in organic produce, I believe in homegrown. But yet that government has let Tesco's kind of desecrate our villages. It's allowed planning to work in such a way that local communities have been destroyed. Now maybe as a society that's what we want. We want cheaper food, we want to destroy the local butcher.
We've had a week in which the parties have all been putting forward their manifestos full of policy ideas. Is there something that I could do, very simple policy ideas that you think might change the way food culture works in this country?
I mean, it's all very well banning farming practices in Britain and then importing the meat from places where it isn't banned. That kind of stinks of hypocrisy to me. And I think it's about just supporting overseas producers and making sure that they're paid fairly for sustainable farming?
I really try and support the local businesses, and there's a lot of shops in Peckham along the main sort of drag that are all, there's a lot of sort of fruit and vegetables and stuff stacked up. And I buy all my fruit and veg there, and a lot of it, I mean, none of it probably is grown in like Kent or something, probably, or comes from God knows where, but the point is that I'm supporting local businesses and I'm supporting my community. And I think like the more we get sort of the community back into food, it's just so important because it brings people together, and that's what food's about. It's about sharing the experience, you know. Get talking to people, get talking to the local shopkeepers, and that's what it's all about for me.